the actual falls themselves are quite a ways east, if I remember correctly, but the road runs very long east to west. So anyways, you have to note the farmhouse up here on the top of the hill. You'll see a white farmhouse behind those hills up there, and that's kind of where our story takes place today. So it's kind of covered by the weeds and stuff, but back in the 1950s, you would have had an unobstructed view between the tracks and that house there. So anyways, one sec. In the 1950s, there was a family of 4 that lived there, mom, dad, and 2 brothers. And if I remember correctly, I can't remember the ages of the brothers at the time of this story, but I think they were about 5 and 3 years old, if I remember correctly, very young at the time. So anyways, it was the older brother himself who told me this story, which was pretty funny. I think the year is 1957, and at the time, you could expect a train to go by at any hour, if you will. During the days of the Delaware and Hudson, trains would run at any time, if you will. You'd have, well, actually, the passenger trains had gone, but freight trains aren't like passenger trains where, we have to leave by 11 a.m. or something. So anyways, as a freight train is coming through late that night, the 2 young brothers are trying to fall asleep at the very front end of the house. If I remember correctly, I think their house was on the second front floor of the house right there. And anyways, it's a regular occurrence for the train to go up by and rattle everything through the house there. Well, they're trying to doze off and they start to get diesel engines have a very cool sound to them, especially these old Alcos here. You can hear them coming from miles away. So anyways, as the train gets closer, it starts ringing its bell, sounds its horn, and as the engines go on by, you have that Doppler effect, that sound. So as the engines go on by, they start to hear what goes like a very uneven sounding bumping and rattling and all. Well, that metal screeching gets closer and closer and closer, and by the time whatever it is gets to the railroad crossing, it sounds like the world is ending. Steel's grinding, mangling, things are going on top of each other, but they can't see anything because it's so dark out. Now, little kids don't know what a train wreck sounds like, but mom and dad knew well enough that the only sound the train makes when it makes that sound is all the cars coming off. So anyways, everyone was awakened by that loud sound there. They're trying to look out the windows, but they can't see anything because it's like 7 p.m. out. And as we know, I hate it, it's dark by 7 p.m. already, but that's besides the point. Anyways, they start seeing a glow coming from the wreck, but they don't know what it is. It's like a reddish orange, and it's an orb that's just going left and right and left and right, but it's getting closer and closer and closer to the house. So obviously, not only were the kids freaked out, I'd be freaked out too. Mom and dad were like, what is that? And all they can tell is it's a lantern, but it looks like a floating lantern. They got no clue what it is. So as this mysterious lantern's getting closer and closer to the house, they start seeing it coming up the road, and now it's coming up the front steps to the porch, and they can't really see it anymore before they hear a bump, 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 bump in the front of their door. Now the kids are peering from the very top of the stairs looking down, and dad is at the front door. He opens it. He's like, oh, what am I about to see? And he sees it's the head end brakeman from the train holding the lantern. He's all covered in dark soot and all because we've gotten so dusty from the wreck. He says, hey, can we use your phone? So you have to remember back then, everybody, railroads were just starting to implement radios like we have today on their trains. The Delaware and Hudson, I think, had radio on their main lines, but I don't think the branch line, for whatever reason, was set up to radio yet. It would come around, I think, in 58 or 59. So anyways, if a train came off the tracks like it did there, railroad crews like us, like we are today, we kind of know communication points, if you will, or where the nearest railroad crossings are. So they knew, hey, we were at Spire Falls Road. That white house up there likely has a telephone. Let's see if we can reach out. So anyways, the brakeman steps into the kitchen. He's all dirty. He's got his overalls. Not like me where you'd have the clean suit on. He's the guy with the overalls and the lantern. And he uses the rotary phone. He calls the dispatcher and says, hey, you got to shut down the traffic on the line here. We came off the tracks. Because last thing you'd want is sun to come up early that morning. Northbound freight thinks it's completely fine to leave Saratoga, go up the branch, they come around the hill, and oh my goodness, you got a train off the tracks. So by the time the sun came up that morning and the traffic was halted, I believe it was an ore train that came off from the titanium mine. So as it was heading south full of ore, if I remember correctly, somewhere around the middle of the train, an axle came off. And as the axle was bumping up and down on the railroad ties, by the time it came to the railroad crossing, that was enough to lift the wheel up, then completely off, and then all the other freight cars behind followed suit until everything came to a stop. So while the engines were fine and the caboose on the back was fine, it was kind of around that middle of the train where an axle picked the rail somewhere. So anyways, as we make our way back further north, there's a unique story that took place, I believe, actually did Hal tell the